Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
So I'm excited about today's podcast.
Me too.
Because I have a socially unaware friend named Jacob T. And we were sitting down having breakfast this morning with him and a whole group of people. And I was talking about this podcast, and he is super socially unaware. And he was like, bro, you could just tell me right here, tell me if you think I'm socially unaware. I'm like, yeah, I'm making the podcast for you. So if no one else listens to this, I'm going to send this to Jacob. Jacob, listen closely to this podcast.
This is for you.
This is going to help you out, buddy.
Okay, the truth is, we were having breakfast talking about this episode and how we're excited to give some foundations for how to connect to people, how to relate to other humans. Because a lot of us, if we have social anxiety, don't really know that there's a few key ingredients that if you throw it in, your conversation is likely to be better.
Tasty soup.
Tasty conversations.
The soup du jour. Well, I think that when it comes to relating to people, there's not really school on relating. There's school on doing math, which is a complete waste. I mean, who needs math?
My accountant does 100%.
There's tons of uses for math.
Yes.
A kid. But we don't get taught the social aspect that is a very needed aspect.
In school, I wish that this is what they taught people. Like, this is how to create good connection. This is how to create good conversations.
This is how to not alienate yourself.
Yes.
Or like even, Jacob.
Or even in our world, there's a few things that I think about, like if you're baking a cake, you really, really don't want to put certain ingredients into it because it'll just destroy the entire cake.
Yep.
I don't know what they are because I don't bake cakes, but I'm just thinking like if you put some kind of...
Maybe they should teach a class for that in high school.
Baking cake?
They do. It's called Home Ec 101.
Yeah, they have home ec
but
and they don't have
homeschooled.
Relating. Relating to people 101.
Yeah, relating to people 101.
So if you missed that course, this conversation is going to be helpful for you. It's just going to lay out a few of the things that disrupt connection and a few of the things that really help it be good. And you can use this with strangers. You can use this with relatives. You can use this on dates. You can use this with your spouse. Practically, we're just helping you understand how to make richer connections.
Yeah.
And we all have that one person.
That one person who's going to get sent this podcast
that we avoid talking to at every function, or we're just like, we cringe in our body when we're like, oh no, now I have to call this person, and now they're going to talk at me the whole time, and they're going to talk about all of their politics and everything they hate about the world, and I'm just going to have to sit there and suffer through it.
Speaking of politics. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to talk about politics. No, that's not a good way. That's not a good way to relate.
Not a good way to start.
Yeah. But I do want to say that I think that this is an episode that is going to be fantastic for everyone. Share it in your friend groups because it's great to get on the same page. Yeah. How to relate. So you want to kick it off or you want me to?
You start, because we're going to start with a couple frameworks that help you, and then actually the practical skills.
Yeah.
So the first framework is humility. And do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. To me, relating to humility is the vital foundation to all of it. Yeah. Because when it comes to the idea of humility says, I don't think I'm better than anyone else. It says, I'm not here to prove anything to anyone else. So humility is an invitational heart posture, right? It's a heart posture that's rooted inside of love. It's rooted inside of connection for the world around you. Humility is a heart posture that says, I see common humanity. So I see that I could be just as messy as you are. And inside of humility, because we don't know everything, we are more apt to seek to understand, to get curious, to ask questions. And so to me, humility is very invitational.
Well, and humility is that concept of I'm looking at you as an equal. And there's so many different ways. There's somebody that I know, and they have a very clear judgment based on how far ahead you are in your career, how much money you've made, what kind of car you drive. So they have like a hierarchy, and you can actually hear it when they talk to people, because they'll be like, this person is really got everything going for them, and this person is just not. And a lot of us do that. A lot of us have judgments on what is valuable or unvaluable. And you're really talking about coming from the frame of every human has inherent worth.
Yeah.
Because every human is a child of God. Every human has a part of them that is made in God's image. And viewing ourselves as equal, it doesn't mean I don't have to prove that I'm as good as you. I don't have to prove that I'm better than you. I can just sit in that concept of being able to be equal to you.
Yeah.
And that is, it can be tricky if you have somebody on a pedestal, and it also means I'm not seeing myself as less than other people.
Yeah.
So when we are, and part of this is even consciously, you can do self-talk before you go into a conversation and be like, I have worth and they have worth, and we both have worth. I don't have to prove myself. I'm not more than them. I'm not less than them. We are both humans. And I think that belief system changes the way that you talk. Now you're not talking down to somebody, or you're not trying to give somebody your resume to prove that you have value.
Yeah. And I think humility is the byproduct of a journey of identity. And that's something, that's a lifelong process that we're in. Like, humility is being developed throughout our journey as we are engaging in understanding our identity as a child of God, like you said, that has intrinsic value.
Yes.
And so that's part of it, is that, like, if we want to develop a core way to relate, we have to engage in that process of, like, I want to actually understand how lovable I really am, and how that spills over into how I love others. And I want to understand what the truth of my being is outside of the parameters of my performance and what I gain inside of this world, what I call success. Like, all of that is secondary to a core truth. And so, again, the humility conversation is an invitation to go on an identity journey. If you haven't started that yet, or you're in it, just keep moving along with it, because the byproduct is it will produce humility, and it will produce a common value for all of mankind.
And this, to me, is where our view and our theology of God really impacts us, which is, I really believe there is a source of love that loves all of us, that we are fully loved by God. And so what that does is that really helps me to believe that there's something valuable about me, whether our life circumstances are different or not. Like, you might be farther ahead in your career, and I might be just starting out. But I also think our lives are measured by way more things than what we see on the outside.
Yeah.
And so maybe you're great at your career, but maybe I've learned a lot about compassion. Or maybe you're great at finances, and maybe I'm great at cooking. Like, there's so many different things that we can be great at. And so taking down your judgments that someone's better than you or worse than you, and remembering everybody has certain gifts that they have. And when we have humility, we're looking to see the gold in them. Like, that's what, in conversations, we're looking to see the gold in somebody. We're looking to find what are the things that are great about them. When you think about it, kind of like a treasure hunt, where you're not trying to prove that you're better than them, you're actually wanting to see the beauty of who they are. That posture makes you curious, and it makes you interested, and it helps you find the good in people.
Well, and you brought up the word judgment. To me, the journey towards a lifestyle of humility is an invitation to progressively let go of our judgments and come face to face with, where do I carry judgment inside of my heart that's keeping me from humbly relating to the humanity that's right in front of me. And as we are letting go progressively of those judgments, we are humanizing the individual in front of us. And again, that is where the connection takes place. And
8 years ago, my life completely shattered. I went through about 25 traumatic situations that happened right after each other. And the pain from that, along with the pain from my childhood that wasn't healed, overwhelmed and engulfed me. It actually broke me. It broke my mind. It broke my heart. And then that broke my body. I became so sick for a few years. And I had to go on the journey of learning how to heal. I went on the process of having to learn how to reclaim myself. It was like I was broken in 1,000 pieces on the ground, and I had to go back and find out how to scoop up each piece and bring them back to me. The only way that I learned how to heal was learning about the nervous system, our emotions, and our body and how they connect to each other. I didn't understand what our mind and our body and nervous system does in pain and in stress, and how we actually hold and carry memories inside of our body. If we don't learn how to retrain our nervous system, we will recreate the patterns that we've lived in, the patterns of stress and chaos. They will just keep happening. If we don't learn how to move the emotions out of our body, they'll stay trapped inside of our body, causing us panic and fear and shutdown. And then, of course, learning our emotions. I spent years trying to manage my emotions, but without understanding how our body works, you can never have a healthy relationship with your emotions. So we created a course this year that I am so excited about. It's 8 years worth of my own personal healing process, plus all of the trauma, research, and understanding that I've had, and all of the healing that I've been able to walk others throughout this process. It's called Reclaiming You, and it will help you create a healthy relationship with your body, your nervous system, and emotions. It's going to help you find your resilience again so that you can face life with hope and joy and actually feel relaxed and feel good in your body and feel safe in your own skin again. And we want to invite you to join us for this experience this January.
Yeah. And also, for those of you who are just joining us, we've been in the emotional health field for 15 years now. We've had over 4,000 clients, and we've had over 10,000 people take our courses. And the cool thing is that in that whole process, we've actually had thousands of people tell us that taking our courses has radically transformed their lives, their relationships. And the reality is, it's not just because of the information, it's because of the community aspect. And that's what's so cool and unique about Reclaiming You. It's 14 weeks of live community experience that you're going to have when you join us for that. So we're excited about it. Come join us. You can go to justinabbey.com/reclaimingyou. And October 28th is when that'll be available on our website. And then January 11th, 2025 is when the course kicks off. And it's going to be a cool way to start the year off. So come join us.
Yeah. And one of the things that you've actually said is, this is what makes you curious about people, is the humility of, I don't believe I know it all.
Yeah.
And I believe other humans have, like, interactions have something to give me. Interactions have value. And it could be that, like, something I experience of what I feel when I talk to you, or something I learn from how I talk to you, something I learn about your perspective. The humility comes back to, there's something that's a gift to me about an interaction with somebody.
I believe that every person carries a treasure box with golden nuggets inside of it, is how I perceive it. And I'm wanting to be present within my interactions to extract the gold nugget that treasure box holds within it for my life. I know that you can look at anyone. Like, I've spent a lot of time with people who are in very difficult circumstances when it comes to drug addiction.
Yeah.
And they're living on the street in those situations. And I have had some profound conversations that, in my ability to be present with them, that have shined a light on a beautiful truth about God and about life, as I was there, not even to think I could help them. It was, I see an individual, I see their humanity, I want to go be present with it. In that moment, something beautiful was revealed to me about life, about God. And maybe there was something that was beautiful that was revealed to them in my interaction with them. But when we have that heart of humility, we are extracting a lot of beauty out of life when we perceive that gold exists in every individual and every exchange potentially.
Yeah. And the reason we call it humility is because it's that posture of I have more to learn and more to grow and more to gain. And the learning posture is like, I can't wait to see what gets sparked in me, what thoughts get provoked in me, what feelings I end up walking away with from interactions. And so when we're looking at that, and it's easy to forget this because we get busy and we're in a rush and we're like just mad that the cashier's even talking to us because we just got to get out of the store. But when we can come back to remembering that it's our human interactions that actually bring fulfillment to us, and that even little interactions, we can have something that actually impacts us and the person across from us.
Yeah. I want to add this little story just because it pops into my head from my youth. When I was in my early 20s, I would go to the streets of Venice in Santa Monica when I was in film school out in LA. And I would just spend time with people on the streets, investigating their stories and their lives a lot of time. And that was a profound season for me. And I was walking by on 3rd Street Promenade one day, walking by a guy, and I hear him shouting, "Invisible man here, invisible man." And I was like, that's interesting. So I said, "Hey, what does it mean, invisible man here?" He goes, "Well, I'm sitting here and I'm having a hard time in life. And as people pass by, they don't look down at me. No matter what I say, they ignore me." He said, "It's like I'm just an invisible man. It's like I'm not even human." And it's interesting because that statement, like he took a piece of gold out of his soul and he put it into my hand and he said, "Here's gold for the rest of your life. Let me give you a piece of wisdom."
Yeah.
And I remember walking away. I'm even like, as I'm recalling it, I can feel emotion hitting me because I remember going like, I do not ever want to allow people to feel invisible when I go across them. Like, I want to be someone that sees the human being in front of me and sees them with eyes of love and care. And I've not done that perfectly by any means. And I've done it poorly in many instances, but it's been something that has been like it's like I sat down with almost like a guru, right? Everyone's passing by, thinks that he doesn't have worth, but this guru said in one statement something that would impact the rest of my life, and he taught me something that day, and that somehow there was grace of humility on me in that moment and in that season to be present with people in those conditions, to be able to extract gold like that.
Yeah. I love that. That's really beautiful. It is and I would say what we look for, we receive.
Yeah.
So you were looking for the gold and you found it. When we're busy and we're like looking for how it's an annoyance, it just becomes another person yelling at us.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're saying, if you purpose to have the posture of humility, what can I connect to in this? It can open you up to find those moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
The second frame that we want to talk about is care. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So I think when we relate to people, there has to be this sense of care inside of us. Like, it is right after humility comes the essence of care. Now that we see every individual that having intrinsic value, that they are the extension of God's nature manifest on earth. When I look through that lens, then all of a sudden I begin to genuinely care about each individual I come across. So when we're having conversations, when they're sharing a part of their life, it's not about a me thing. It becomes this externalized experience of I'm seeing humanity and I want to express care for it, whether it's listening to them, whether it's doing an act of service for them, or whatever it is. I'm asking, what's one of the love languages, which I'll elaborate with this one story. When we first met Paul Young and engaged in his world, he sat down with me, and one of the things—
Paul Young, for those of you who don't know, is the man who wrote The Shack.
Yeah. And
which is a best-selling book.
Yeah.
In case they don't know that.
Go read it or watch the movie if you haven't. It's a must.
Mm-hmm.
So when we first spent 2 weeks with him, one of the conversations he had with me, well, let me back up. I had a lot of anxiety around relating to older men.
Oh, yeah.
Father figures.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really hard spot for me.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I went into a lot of performance and I was waiting for a lot of judgment to come barreling down on me. I especially had leadership within the religious institution that had a lot of negative things to say about how I did anything in my life.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of judgments. So there was guards in my soul. And, you know, as I sat across from Paul, he said one day, you know, Justin, when I'm with you, I'm not thinking about all the things that I need to do to fix you and things that could change about you. What I'm sitting contemplating is how can I love you well? So I'm searching through all the avenues of what love might look like to extend to you. And that love looked like a poem that he wrote for me, a song that he sang to me. That looked like money that he gave to us, hidden in a stack of books. That looked like
spending time answering questions and asking questions.
Taking us to his favorite restaurant that he only took his kids to. That looked like him introducing us to a person in his life that was
important.
Very, very important, highly important, and part of how he wrote the book. And that there was all these different aspects of engagement. And what I knew out of my interactions with him is that I was cared about. That question inside of him, how do I love him well, was manifested tangibly in a way that created a lasting impact on me and said, I know that I am cared about. And so that is something that I have within me. I'm asking the question, how do I love people well? Which is a way, it is a way of saying, how do I care about this person really well?
Yeah. And it could literally just be being present in the conversation, or it could be asking more questions, or it could be something where you practically end up loving someone. Sometimes it's just being with someone.
It could be injecting fun.
Yeah. And having playful banter and joking. 100%. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a huge thing.
No.
And it can literally sometimes just be the posture of, I care while you're here. I think that this is so beautiful because it goes so against, I grew up Christian, and one of the things I learned a lot was love with an agenda. My goal in talking to you is to get you saved. My goal in having a conversation with you is to show you Jesus. My goal. And so it became about, I'm trying to get somewhere in a conversation. I have an agenda for what love looks like, or if you're codependent like me, I wanted to, another thing was I wanted to fix people or have something to give, have some good advice to give them so that I was valuable. Yeah. Because I had that question of I don't have anything to offer. I'm not valuable on my own. And so I was like, if I can hear about their life and fix something about it, then they'll feel like I gave them a gift, and that will feel like I have value.
Yeah.
And so much of the time when I was listening to people when I was younger, I did have an agenda. I had an agenda to help them. I had an agenda to save them. I had an agenda. And what that does is that takes you out of being present.
Yes.
It is actually easier to have an agenda with somebody than it is to be present with somebody and to be present in the moment. And I love that conversation you had with Paul. I think it changed, we've been changing our understanding of love.
Yes.
So much as the years have gone on. And one of the ways for that is presence, which is the next core value that we're going to talk about. And this is also practical, but just being present in a conversation with people. And that sounds so funny to say, but letting go of our agenda, letting go of what we trying to get somebody somewhere, and then also letting go of our distractions Because we all know, we've all talked to that person whose eyes are darting around everywhere and you feel like they can't be bothered. They are not enjoying the conversation. Your brain is like on hyperdrive and you're like, are they even listening to what I say? Are they bored? Am I boring them? Do I need to say something more interesting? Do I try to say something funny? Do I try to end this conversation to get like, I start going into my own spinning wheel when people are looking all around and not being connected because it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
To feel like somebody doesn't want to be there. Now, I have compassion for that because I have ADHD. And so even when I want to be with somebody, I can start being
ping-ponging around,
very distracted. And so it's something I've had to learn. Even in the times when I'm not capable of being present, I might say, I'm really enjoying this conversation. I can tell that my ADHD is really overstimulated by this restaurant, but I want you to know that I'm enjoying what you're having to say. I can just sometimes say something like that to help make up for my attention issues. But presence and having somebody who feels like they want to be there, just that feeling, it feels like they're not trying to get out of here. We all, there's this book called Heart Math. And basically it talks about how we have a 6-foot radius of a wave of a frequency that our heart sends out.
Wow.
And so people actually can feel our emotions and they can feel what is going on inside of us subconsciously. So we are able to feel each other. And so when you feel like somebody isn't listening and you feel like somebody doesn't want to be there, it's not a safe place for you to want to share anything of interest.
What's that? What were you saying? I was thinking about something else.
Uh-huh.
Wah,
wah. Wah.
It's an interesting aspect of the presence that you're talking about requires us to get into our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a really hard thing. There's a lot of reasons why we are outside of ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just the distraction of the phone or thinking about other things here, but sometimes being with myself alone can be really difficult. There's a lot
scary or overwhelming.
Yeah.
Often we don't know what to do with our emotions.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to be close to ourselves to have to feel our own
It's
emotions.
True. Yeah. And so part of that aspect of presence, if we want to become that, we have to ask, is there something within me that I'm avoiding that's causing me to avoid being present inside of conversations with people?
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. I think there's another aspect of when we personally have anxiety, sometimes there's this anxiety that we carry.
100%.
Especially when there may be aspects of our identity that we haven't connected with, going back to that humility conversation. And so when there's
aspects of our value that
correct.
We haven't connected with.
So when I haven't connected with aspects of my personal self-worth, a lot of times I can be inside of a conversation and the questions that are happening inside of me is like, what do they want from me? How do I respond? What are they thinking about what I'm saying?
Are they interested? Do they think I'm valuable?
Do they like me? Are they frustrated with me? Like there's a lot of insecurity that can come up
100%.
inside of the relational exchanges.
Yes.
And that insecurity causes us to be extracted out of the very present moment. So part of getting settled into my own skin is starting to embrace and accept who I am outside of the conditions of what maybe other people's judgments might be. And not allowing the judgments they potentially have to dictate how we're going to show up to a circumstance.
Right. Yeah. I think presence is hard, but I do think it's something you can practice.
I agree.
I think that's one of the things. And I give myself so much grace because especially when I had I'm recovering with PTSD, but when it was at its height, I had so much social anxiety and I just gave myself permission to not be as present because I was like, I can't in this season. So I think it's valuable to know where we're at and what capacity we have, but I might have picked a few relationships to try to be present in it. I may not be able to be present with, and I'd say that's still true for me. I'm still coming back. Like PTSD, one of the things is you feel so unsafe inside of yourself that you are outside of yourself. So I would be scrolling all the time or ping-ponging, or especially with my ADHD and social anxiety, you put me in a big party where there's lots of noises, it can feel overwhelming to me to try to be present. And so there's times where I will purposefully just choose, I'm not going to be present right now. So maybe I'll get into a conversation where somebody else can be talking and I can just follow along like that. Or try to have a conversation about something I'm passionate about to try to re-engage my ability to connect in and be present. Like there's a lot of hacks that I have for trying to be present. One of them is get people talking about something that's interesting to both of us. Get somebody sharing like a funny or interesting story that I'm curious about. Share a story that I'm really connected to that will help me connect to myself when I'm sharing it a lot. And sometimes it'll be, if I'm trying to be present, I will purposely put my phone away from me. We all know what it's like to talk to somebody who starts scrolling on their phone or starts checking their phone every few minutes. We know what it's like to talk to somebody who looks distracted, who's checking their watch, who's constantly looking at the door. Like, it is an unsettling feeling to have somebody feel like they're not enjoying being with us. And so if we can remember that for others, not just judge people who are like that, but remember, oh, am I creating a situation where this person feels like I don't want to be with them? And for me, one of the things I've done is, if I am feeling that way, like I don't want to be with them, and maybe it's because I'm too overwhelmed or I have social anxiety, I might just either try to get into a group so it doesn't feel like to one person I don't want to be with them, or I might just end that conversation and go do something that feels a little bit safer for me to not have to be as present. But my goal is to give presence if I can when I'm in a situation.
We shared earlier about reclaiming you. This next year, we're also kicking off an online membership called The Connection Cure. With The Connection Cure, you can get access to all of our courses and our online resources for one low price. Now, if you jump into Reclaiming You, you're going to get early access to The Connection Cure free with your purchase of Reclaiming You.
Yeah, so you'll get the Compassion Project, the Father Series, Living Fully Alive, Pathway to Freedom, and Relationship Glue, along with the thing I'm most excited about, our Regulation Library, which has over 70 guided regulation exercises for you to be able to start to retrain your nervous system to feel peace and connected to yourself.
Come join us January 11th, 2025 for Reclaiming You, and get on board for
with
the Connection
bonus,
Cure. Yeah.
You get a bonus in the Connection Cure for as long as you're doing it.
I want to add to this. This is kind of something I thought. I think there's an aspect of being present that in order for us to get there, we have to choose to be in the moment that we're in.
Yeah.
What I mean by that,
so good, Justin,
is like, there's multiple things. I can feel like I have to be in this conversation. You don't have to be in that conversation.
No, 100%.
There's so many circumstances that you do not have to be there.
Yes.
And so
you can go to the bathroom. You can say, excuse me, I need to go have another conversation. You can say somebody's calling you on the phone.
So we may be like, oh, I don't want to have this connection. So I'm distant and checked out from it. Okay, then why are you there? And then I have to ask myself, am I being powerless to this circumstance? Is it because I don't want to hurt their feelings? Well, me not being present isn't helping their feelings any. Maybe like I need to be okay with them being disappointed if I decide not to do this. Also, do I have weird social rules that are causing me to be at this function or in this situation? Or again, if I'm here and I'm thinking, I love this person, but I have this job in the back of my head and there's all these deadlines that I have to do. Like, then get up from the conversation and say, I love you. We need to reschedule.
Yes.
Or something like that. But if I'm here, there has to, like, I've had to learn progressively. Hey, if I'm here in this moment, be in this moment, Justin. Choose this moment. Choose this over like the list of things that you have to do. Like over your anxiety about getting that done. Like, okay, I'm either here, I'm going to alleviate my anxiety by removing myself from this. I'm saying like, let's reschedule.
Yeah.
Or can we have a talk at another time? Or can we connect another time? Or
even one of the things that I found really helpful that's kind of a middle ground is, hey, I want to let you know, I'm really glad to be around you. I have a work thing that I am like running through in my brain. So if I feel a little distracted, I want you to know that it's not about this hangout. Or like sometimes I'll actually just, that'll happen with me with a migraine. I'll be like, hey, I'm really glad to be here. I have a migraine. So if I start to look like I'm hating our conversation, it's actually just that I'm in pain.
That's informational, which is helpful.
Because I know with me, I have a friend, and it really changed because they would often just disconnect. And I would feel them, they're somewhere else and they don't want to be here. And I wouldn't know what was happening. And it feels like rejection.
Right.
And so I would start being like, where did you go? What just happened? And it would often be like, oh, I'm feeling anxiety about this thing that I have to do in 20 minutes, blah, 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 blah. And when I could hear what was going on that made them disconnect, I knew, then I could be like, oh, that actually wasn't about me. They're not bored with me. They're not frustrated at me. They just have something else that is coming up for them. And that was really helpful. So that helped me learn if I can narrate a little bit for people when I am distracted or what's going on, then that can give them grace.
Yeah, that's really good. I want to transition. Now, this has been kind of like internal framework that we're talking about. Now we want to talk about some of the external.
The practicals.
Do you want to grab the next
first one, the most important, I think, is finding conversational balance.
Oh my goodness.
We all know those people that you go and they just talk at you. They just and you're looking for a break. Sometimes I can't even find a break to say I need to go to the bathroom. Like sometimes their sentence never stops and you just feel assaulted by their words.
Oh my gosh. I've had times where I've done that to people and I look back and I go, I remember in it like, oh my God, stop your mouth. Why is it moving so much? Justin,
yes, which
you're assaulting them with a machine gun.
And a lot of these things are because we have social anxiety.
Totally.
So a lot of times when somebody's talking so much, that is how they're handling their anxiety that they feel. And so that makes so much sense. But if that's you, you can do a couple things to like help disrupt it. You can be like, when I notice I start talking a lot, I'm going to take a few deep breaths.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to have something to disrupt, or I'm going to ask them a question. When I notice I'm starting to talk a lot, I have a go-to question to ask them. But the other flip side of over talkers is under talkers.
Yes, who are dead silent, which I have been the dead silent guy that's like, oh, okay. Actually, there's this leader I've been around. And when I'm around this guy, he doesn't like to make conversation.
Yeah.
So he'll begin to be like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, and he'll be like, how you doing? He's like, good. Yeah. And you're like, what is happening?
Totally.
Throw me a bone here, brother.
Yes. And I know them, they have social anxiety.
Yes.
They don't know what else to say. That answered the question.
Yep. And I've been there. I've had that social anxiety. I've done that like, yeah, great.
Yeah.
Don't know what to do.
Sometimes you don't have the capacity
or have it to give.
But if you want good connection, you
Fostering
want to find
balance.
a balance. And I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about so many people in family situations, at parties, at group events where there's that person that will talk your ear off if they come over. And what ends up happening is we feel so powerless that we want to start avoiding them.
Yeah.
And so part of the idea is if you can find conversational balance. And again, one of the easiest ways to find conversational balance is have a question. Have
a question in your pocket ready to fire at them?
Yes.
Like just a general question that's helpful. It's
yes.
Like, bang.
Have it written down on your phone. Like sometimes I blank out with social anxiety. And so I have a few questions on my phone to ask to just help me have something that will start the conversation.
That's easy and practical.
It's easy
and
you
get to think about it when you're not in a triggered state. And you're like, oh, these are good questions.
Yes. And so I think if you are a talker, you can ask a question to the other person and then genuinely listen and be present. Don't just be thinking about what you're going to say next, which is another thing. Like if you want good connection, listening to them as much as you're thinking about what you're going to say is important.
Yeah. One of the things I think that's vital to conversational balance is your ability to be okay with silence.
Mm-hmm.
So the in between.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're having a conversation,
oh, it's hard
the conversation,
though. Even you just talking about it, it makes me squirm. I hate silence in conversations.
Yeah.
I think what people feel is like, oh no, I'm dropping a ball. I'm not entertaining enough.
Yeah.
Ah!
This space, what do we do with this space?
Yes.
So I purposely, and I've probably given a lot of people like
Anxiety.
social heart attacks,
Mm-hmm.
where I will sit and wait and sit and just give the conversation room to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll watch them be like, I need to fill the space. I'm like, hey, we're good. We can sit here for a second. I'm just thinking about what you just said.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thought. And I bring the temperature. I try to bring the temperature down to a certain spot.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that is one of the things that keeps us we keep trying to fill those spaces, and we get out of being present and being okay with the in between.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really important to think about the goal is that we have a balance. Now, it's never going to be 50-50 talking, because very rarely is it going to be exactly like that.
Yeah.
It might be like 60-40 or 35-75, but you don't want it to be 90-10. You don't want it to be 80-20 for the most part, unless it's like a one-time conversation because they're sharing something that's really interesting to you and you're wanting to hear every detail. The goal is that you have a balance and that you're both talking. If you think about a conversation like energy, I'm bringing energy and you're bringing energy. And when we go back and forth and we each are layering energy into it, it's actually like multiplying and growing the energy between us. If you are giving all of the energy, then you can only give the amount of energy that you have. And if I only take all of that, then there's no ability for that to kind of bounce back towards you. And so I know that this sounds so basic, but a lot of people aren't self-aware enough to notice if they don't say anything or if they say everything.
Yeah.
And so we want to know, are we paying attention to the other person enough to notice if they're participating?
Yeah.
Are they participating? Am I giving them room to where they feel like their voice would matter? Am I giving them space so that they feel like what they have to say is valuable? And one thing that people do is they'll ask a question and then interrupt and just talk again at them. This is a big thing that happens. So they'll be like, Justin, how was your week?
Well, for the most part, it was pretty good. I spent some time with Abby.
I was spending some time with my spouse and we had this date that was blah, 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 blah. Like that happens a lot. Where people ask a question.
Why did you interrupt what I was saying?
And then they interrupt and they jump back into talking about them.
About their world. Yeah.
And I don't ever want to villainize people. They're over talkers often do it for a reason.
Yeah.
Where there's something that they are trying to feel safe. Yes.
Yeah, we've all done that.
Maybe not all of us, but a lot of us have done it.
There's
Some people are very quiet.
There's a segment of society that's done the over talking. Then there's a segment of society that's done the under talking.
Yes.
We've all been part of each group.
Yes.
One side of it.
100%. And I would say the same thing with under talkers. Like I had a friend, and they went on a hangout with a group of people and they were really trying to get to know one person. And so they're like, how are you? And they're like, fine. How have you loved living here? Like, what do you like doing? And everything was one answer. And so what it felt like is that they were constantly trying to give energy. And then it was like the person was throwing the energy away.
Yeah. Spitting on it.
So I think if we just remember, it's like an energy dance where our goal is that we are both adding something back and forth towards each other. I think that creates such a powerful synergy. That is where you end up feeling connection. And it can be hard. Like sometimes starting conversations or engaging can feel like work, and you often have to kind of navigate for a little bit until you find a subject or a talking point that somebody connects to themselves. That's normally what's happening in a conversation where it feels awkward, is because there's that turning point in conversations where it goes from small talk to something where you genuinely feel connected to each other. That turning point is often because the conversation goes somewhere where somebody can connect to themselves enough to get present. And we often mirror each other. So when one person can get present, it often pulls the other person into being able to get present. And so we're kind of looking for that moment.
Yeah. And you're kind of you're kind of also touching on genuine interest, which is one of the things on our list here.
Yes.
Is that when I'm sitting down with the life in front of me, that being the people around me, when I have a genuine interest inside of it, there's oftentimes it's helpful at creating that type of balance, because I'm like, I want to know, I want to hear your story. I want to know more about your life. You are a human being and you matter because I have care for you. So now I'm right here and present. And that genuine interest causes people to feel excited. The best of themselves oftentimes comes out when we're genuinely interested. They're like, oh, I can feel love, care, affection, and interest. It matters that I exist inside of this moment. And so I have found that I have gotten some of the most profound conversations out of people because I have been genuinely interested. And people have said to me, like, I have never shared with anyone what I shared with you. I don't know what it is about you, but I felt like I could share all of these things about my life.
I had a mentor when I was younger tell me, people love to talk about themselves. So if you ask a question, people are gonna love feeling like somebody is genuinely interested or curious about them. Like that is a safe thing for a lot of people. Now, some people it feels threatening too, but for a lot of people, there is something that when you feel like somebody's genuinely interested, that feels so rare that it can feel like an endorphin hit to have somebody that's genuinely interested in you. And then you say something and they're like, so I'm always looking for, what is something I can be curious about this subject? Yeah. So like sometimes there's things people are talking about that I'm not that interested in. Like if they get into, like, honestly, if you were going to talk to me about your action figure making, if you were going to start going into how you actually make it, I would check out instantly because I can't visualize. It's part of my learning disabilities. I can't visualize. So when people are giving,
and you're an unloving wife, so there's that.
So when I can't visualize and it gets really detailed, it ends up hitting my learning disabilities and I feel overwhelmed. So what I could do though is I'm really fascinated in people's stories. So I could be like, when did you first realize you loved action figures?
What got you into it?
When you were a kid, what action figures did you play with, or did your parents give you action figures, and what
got you connected to them?
Yeah, I could look for something that would be more interesting to me about the topic that we're talking about.
Because everyone has their thing, right? There's a thing, and I know that some of the people's things, I don't care at all whatsoever about the actual thing. Yeah. But I care about the passion. I care about the formation of the excitement that came up inside of them. And I'm like, oh, that's fascinating that I had a friend who got into fly fishing. Yeah. And I don't care at all about fly fishing. Fly, he got into becoming a master craftsman of flies
100%.
And of poles. And that in of itself, like, first off, I do not care about flies. I do not care about the poles, but
same way people don't care about
my action figures and my custom, but I was fascinated by his passion. Yes. And I was fascinated by his excellence. And so for me, I would sit down with him and be like, tell me about like your excitement about this and why is it growing into this and what, how, like, what is causing you to put all this energy into it? Yeah. And I love that. And I love that season of being around him because I could feel the life energy when he was engaging that part of himself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's, again, you can look for what is something about this interaction that can be life-giving. Yeah. And it could be, oh, they're just talking about something they're really passionate about. And that inspires me to be passionate in my own life.
I actually, a story of mine is I had a guy the other day. I sat down with one of our students in a Zoom call and they wanted a few minutes with me and they were like, look, I just have a couple questions. I was like, okay. And he was like, I want to know what makes you so passionate about your action figures. That's true. Yeah. And I felt loved that he had genuine interest. Yeah. And I'm not passionate enough about action figures that I need other people to be excited about them.
Totally.
I could tell that he cared about knowing an aspect of me, and the action figures aren't the knowing, it's the story, right?
Behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I got to share parts of my story, and I was like, wow, that was very emotionally intelligent of you.
Yes.
To bring that to the conversation.
Yeah. And I think being interested in someone is a love language.
It is.
And this is a love language that they don't talk about that I wish they would, which is just having interest. So when you share something, is there something that I find fascinating or curious or delightful about you? Is there something about what you're saying that I want to know more in? And so when we show that interest to somebody, and a lot of times, again, what we can do is we don't have to be a slave to just acting like we're interested. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about genuinely finding a pathway to interest. And so again, for me, I know a few things that I love hearing people's origin stories. Like, how did this come up and where did this come from? And because typically if you get some kind of story where they're talking about, in my childhood, this thing made me come alive, you'll feel people reconnect to the stories they're telling. So I'm often looking for a positive or impactful story from somebody. I like to hear, that's a great question. Like, what's a moment that deeply impacted your life? Or what's a moment that completely changed the direction of your life that you're thankful for? Something like that. Because when people go back, you feel what they connect to about their lives. And that is often part of the connection energy that I'm excited to find in a conversation with somebody. I want to find what is a moment that was really great for you, that then I get to feel that energy from your body come radiating from your heart of what you're just talking about. That is a fun hit for me in conversation.
I found that there are people that sometimes aren't interested in their own lives.
Yeah.
In my journey my journey of curiosity and getting interested in them, actually, I watched as something came alive in them, and they started having ahas because I was like, I want to be interested about something inside of you. I'm going to explore asking questions. And all of a sudden, as I'm celebrating aspects of what I'm hearing, because I'm genuinely like, oh, that's so cool. They're like, oh my gosh, this is pretty cool about me. And they can even come alive to interest within their own lives as you're relating in that way.
Yeah. I do want to just say, I think there's a lot of people who don't know how to ask questions.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about so many people and people that I counsel. Like, there's this person that I've been coaching, and they're like, my parents just don't ask questions. And so they have a hard time feeling like their parents want to get to know them and care about their world. And I interacted with their parents, and I watched it happen. Like, I gave some information about their kid, and I watched them not be curious about what was going on and what was happening. And I thought, if they're not asking you and they're not asking about you, that does signal. Now, I know that the parents care because I know them and they love their kids so deeply, but the need we need to feel the love by feeling the interest in our lives. And a lot of, there's another client that I have that is working on relationship with their kids. And I'm like, are you genuinely interested in them? Are you interested in what they're interested in? And a lot of times we want people to be interested in what we're interested in. And so we want to talk about what we're interested in. And so I was thinking of this one person. I watched this dynamic happen. They were talking to their kid, and their kid shared something that they were interested in. And then they were like, oh, yeah, that's like my thing that I'm interested in. Do you want to come do my thing that I'm interested in? And I watched the kid deflate. Because, like, for a moment, they had their parents' attention about something that mattered to them. And then their parent, now I know their parent had social anxiety.
Yeah.
And they were just trying to find something that they could offer their kid.
Yeah.
Oh, you're passionate about that. Maybe I could help you with this, But what the kid felt was, oh my gosh, you don't care. Everything's about you. Everything's about your world. I have to go on your terms. And for a moment, I thought I mattered. And now I don't feel like I do. And so that concept of, again, letting go of I need to offer you something great and just remembering I just need to be present with you. I need to be present so I can just be genuinely interested in you and not have something great to give you, something great to be, some great thing to say. If people knew that presence mattered more than saying the perfect thing, I think it could relieve some of the stress.
Yeah, I agree. That's good. I want to get into, because we don't have a lot of time left, but I want to get into appreciation. To me, appreciation is a game changer in how we relate with people. Because I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've ran into people who are not very appreciative of much of anything.
Yes.
And there's a gripe about all kinds of things. There's a dissatisfaction that they carry about life, about their life, about other people's lives, about every little interaction. So to me, when someone comes to me and they're constantly in dissatisfaction, well, I don't feel loved. I don't want to really relate to this person. I can tell I'm always going to disappoint this person.
Yeah.
But when I have someone come through my life who is just so filled full of gratitude for any exchanges that we're having,
yes,
it fuels a fire inside of me. And it causes me to say, like, I want to spend more time with them. Yes. I want to give more of myself to them, whether that's my information, my wisdom, my time, my energy, whatever it is, because their gratitude, their appreciation feels like it's paying off. When I go to someone who is not appreciative, it's like I'm handing a gift, whatever that gift is. Especially time is something we never get back. It's one of our most valuable commodities. And I'll give my time to someone, and you can tell that they're deflated because they didn't feel like they got what they want out of it. I feel like they're grabbing my time and they're like not only spitting on it, but then they're slamming it on the ground and jumping on it and screaming, "This is garbage. I don't care about this." And I'm like, my most valuable thing that I have in all of life that I cannot get more of, there is a finite amount of that. You just took it, jumped all over it, and walked away on it. And that feels disparaging to my soul.
Oh, totally.
So again, even when it comes to my efforts, not just my time, but my efforts, when I give an effort away and someone was like, it means a lot. Even if you couldn't give me everything I wanted, thank you for this conversation.
I've really enjoyed talking to you.
That expression right there makes me say, this was valued. And again, I want to give away more of it.
Yes. Well, and I'm thinking appreciation is the opposite of guilt. Like when I was younger, I had family members that'd be like, "So good to see you. It's been so long since we've heard from you. We didn't know if you were alive still."
I heard that a lot.
I had so many of those. And what it does is it instantly makes you want to recoil.
Right.
I always tell people, if you want someone to respond to you in a certain way, think about what result you want. So let's say I want them to come around more. Then think, is how I am inviting them to come around more something that would make a human want to come around more?
Yeah.
So if I say, I would like more relationship with my daughter, and then I'm like, I'm going to guilt her to come spend more time with me. I'm going to think, does guilt typically make me want to spend more time with somebody? And it doesn't. It typically makes me start to feel worse about myself and shut down more. And so I'm like, what is a way that I could invite somebody that would make so what I told, and I remember telling my parents this because they used to guilt me a lot when I moved out of the house. And I said, hey, the more you guilt me, the harder it is for me to overcome my own internal walls towards you. And so I want to come and be involved, but I notice that I get really locked up. The more guilt I feel, the more I go into avoidance. And so I was like, could you be thankful for the time that we do have? Because that would make me want to give more. And my parents did. They heard me, which is incredible. So good. And my dad to this day he's like, oh, it was so good talking to you. I'm so glad we got this time together. And that feels so nice. It feels like what you're offering was enough.
Yeah. Appreciation came down to this, even in a situation this small of a thing, but I had someone who would reach out to me and ask to connect. Could I get some of your time? And I said, right now I feel exhausted. I don't have the extra space for that.
Yeah.
But you can keep asking me. And when I do have it.
Yeah.
And they would say to me, I just appreciate that you're willing to consider it. Thank you for taking the time to respond to my email and consider it. And they did that each time. And there were a lot of like, I can't. And they continue to have that heart posture, no guilt, just appreciation that I would respond.
Mm-hmm.
And then at one point I was like, oh yeah, I can absolutely give you some of my time. Let's do this over here. And the time that we had wasn't a ton, but they were like, thank you. You don't owe me anything.
Sure.
And I felt honored that they wanted, like they continued to pursue, like, who am I? I'm not special.
Yeah.
They continued to pursue to want to have connection with me. I'm like, I feel so loved that someone would want to hear from me, spend time with me, share their heart with me and everything that comes with that. And I felt very humbled by that. But like the whole process was appreciation.
Yeah. And everybody loves feeling appreciated.
Yeah.
Everybody loves feeling like what they offered mattered. So even like, oh, if this was it was nice to see you. Something like that. That's appreciation. Or, oh, I really enjoyed our conversation. Or I had no idea that we both had a love for the same kind of books. That was fun to find out. Or the other day I asked somebody about something in their life and they're like, thanks for remembering that. And that so what it did is we had a good exchange. I gave energy by being interested, genuinely interested in their lives, and they gave appreciation back. And it's like, I'm giving energy, they're giving energy. And so we just found synergy.
That's good.
And it's really good. The last one that I want to hit before we end, and I know we're almost out of time, is hellos and goodbyes. And this is something I wish somebody would have taught me earlier. I only learned it in the past few years. And for your attachment system, hellos and goodbyes dramatically impact you. So how engaged or excited are you when somebody comes into a space that you're in, and how much effort do you put in to say goodbye to them? And this one's hard for me because I am ADHD queen. And so if I'm focused on something and Justin walks into the house from being gone, it is, I don't want
think
to,
you know that I even exist sometimes.
Yes, 100%. And so this one has taken a lot of effort for me, but I have begun to put things down when I see somebody walk in. Even if I'm busy and a friend walks in, I'm trying to be like, call out their name and show excitement that I'm glad that they're there. People instantly feeling warmth that you're glad that they're there instantly puts them at more ease. So they're more open to connection, and then you're more open to connection, and then it's easier to have conversations. So just that being consciously aware, I can dramatically impact people from 30 seconds. I don't have to come over and have a 20-minute conversation with you. Yeah. So I've done that. Even when you get home, I've started to like purposefully get up, give you a hug, and say, I'm glad you're here. Have you noticed that at all?
Yeah.
Lately?
Yes.
Yeah. And it feels very different than if you walk in and I don't acknowledge you.
Yeah. Completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what else to say to that. It's just, I feel much more like I exist, right? Like, and it feels warm. I feel connected to you all of a sudden. I know that before in the past, when I'd come in and you'd just be lost on your computer, I'd be like, hi there. Hi, Abby. You know, yeah. Hi. And then I'm like, I feel a deflation, a small deflation.
Yeah.
And because it's the person I love and care about, and I want them to care that I exist and stuff like that. And so it is very valuable.
Go ahead.
I was going to share a part of one of my stories on this note.
Oh, great.
So we've talked about this before. A close friend of ours that actually used to have an office in this office space, Courtney, she'd come down the hallway, and with my ADD, I actually get into hyper focus, and it takes a lot to get me focused. And once I'm there, I'm like, I'm in, I got this, I'm going to accomplish things. Yeah. And Courtney would bounce in between some of her sessions and be like, hey, what are you doing? And I'd be like, I'm working, go away. And she was like, at one point, she was like, look, I need you to not be grumpy, and I need you to stop, and I need you to look up at me. Look up at me for a few seconds. Come here, give me a hug, say hello, and then go back to your work.
Absolutely.
And I was like, okay, if I'm going to leave that door open, especially,
100%,
I have to be willing to give a good hello and a good goodbye when her or other people come barreling down that hallway and acknowledge their humanity, and then say, and I love you, and I need my focus that I have.
Yes. 100%.
And it was good. She called me into it. And then so when she come in, I'd be like, Courtney, she'd be like, Justin, look, you can do it.
Yeah.
You're capable of not being a dick.
Hellos and goodbyes, like scientifically, really create connection.
Yeah.
And so if we can just learn this small skill, and both of those can take 1 minute. So I'm always looking for what is the least amount of energy and time I can spend for the greatest amount of impact, because I only have so much time and energy. So again, if we begin to focus on hellos and goodbyes, I know that there's a client that I'm working with, and he walked in to his parents' house, and his mom got up and was like, "Hi, it's so good to see you." And his dad was on the couch, didn't even really acknowledge him. And he'd actually brought a gift to his dad. And so his dad liked it and whatever. But then when he left, his dad didn't like get up and say goodbye. But his mom was like, "Oh, it was so good to see you." And you could see how deflated he felt by his dad not saying hello or goodbye or making it a priority, but just being focused on what they were focused on. And again, he wasn't needing 2 hours of his dad's time. He wasn't needing this super deep conversation.
Totally.
He just needed to feel
acknowledge the reality of my humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Come give me some connection.
Yes.
Show me that I matter.
And a lot of things that we're talking about are human truths. Like, people love being where they're wanted.
Yeah.
People love sharing about their stories when somebody's interested. People love being somewhere that they're welcomed, that people want them to be there. I have a friend that I know anytime I'm there, he's glad I'm there.
Yeah.
And it makes me want to go to events he plans because I know he'll be happy to see me.
Yeah.
That feels very different than I have another friend that I never feel if they care if I'm there or not. And so I don't go to those things as much because the feeling of being wanted and valued and appreciated is a universal feeling that we're all wanting to feel. And then when you have those friends that are like, "No, don't go," or even like, "Oh, you're going, let me hug you. I can't wait to see you next time." Or, "Oh, it was so good seeing you." 30 seconds. And it can make you feel so full.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So good. It's so simple. Well, there we are, relating to humans 101.
Mm-hmm.
You just got a class in
We
it.
didn't even talk through the disruptors. Do you think we should do one on
that? I don't know. I think it's in there.
Well, I'm going to go over the list really quick.
The disruptor list.
If you're checked out, scrolling, distracted, not paying attention, over talkers, or completely silent, having an agenda or thinking about what you're going to say next, or not being aware of others and what is happening. Oh, we didn't talk about assumptions, but we can get there. Interrupting all the time. That just disconnects relationship unless you're interrupting because you're interested in what they're saying. Yeah. Being self-absorbed. Every time you make the convo back about you and you cannot make it about them, that is an emotional disruptor. Interrupting, being judgmental. That's a big disruptor.
Yeah.
And talking about politics. I think all of those, obviously sometimes if you get somebody who's on the same page as you, politics, you can feel really bonded over.
Yeah.
But you often, like, I know when people talk about politics, I instantly shut down because I don't want to have a conversation I want to feel connected. I don't want to throw opinion battles, grenades.
That's true.
So if you want good connection, have the political conversations with your people, but maybe not with strangers or with family, or maybe ask if they enjoy having the conversation or not.
Do you like talking about politics? You like waging a war with another person?
Because I'm here for it. Yeah.
Let's wage a war.
Yeah.
Over things that don't matter. Well, that's it. We did it. We accomplished relationships. 101.
Yeah. Here's some good tools.
Relating to humans 101. All right. If you haven't yet, go to youtube.com. Go to
The Connected Life.
Connected Life.
Subscribe and hit the bell so that you'll know when we send you things.
The bell, ding. And you can go to Justin and Abby, that's abi.com.
Do you think that your goodbyes really trigger people on the podcast?
Probably.
Go away.
Well, and then I have my Irish goodbyes.
Yeah.
So, but that's unique.
That's more funny at this point.
That's funny at this point.
People don't take it personally because it's like it's your shtick.
Yeah, it's my shtick.
Yeah.
But yeah. I wonder if
maybe we should say a nicer goodbye to our listeners.
No, go away. I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Oh, okay. I was so glad you were here. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for being here. It was really fun hanging out.
Thanks for being with us.
We like you all.
Let us know if anything connected for you.
All right. Go away.
Bye.